Welcome everyone, Coach Nina here. Today I am talking about using praise with young children. When to praise, how to do it, when to refrain from praising, and just how much praise to use. There's lots to cover, so let's jump right in. My first and most important piece of advice on this topic is to praise your child's spirit and their effort rather than the outcome. Though it's natural for us to comment on something that our child has accomplished, praising an outcome can actually backfire. Kids begin to feel like they have to live up to that standard and that if they don't, they've failed. So, for instance, if they're told that they are a skilled tennis player with so much natural talent, and then one season they end up losing 3 matches in a row, they might begin to question their ability and in turn question their worth. But if instead we say, "Oh, you have really been persevering when it comes to building your skills in tennis lately," then perseverance becomes the focus. Should they lose a match, you can still bring attention to how hard they pushed themselves during each set. And maybe, let's say, down the road, your child decides to switch sports or hobbies altogether. That spirit of perseverance is completely transferable, and they'll avoid feeling a sense of loss around that particular part of their identity. You'll also notice how, in those examples I gave, praise was given in a very specific way. Too often we respond to children with really simple and generic phrases like, "Great job," or "You did it." And I'm going to recommend that you actually get way more descriptive so that you draw attention to the aspect of that accomplishment that you feel like is worth highlighting. So, what does this type of praise sound like with a really young child, let's say an infant or a toddler? Again, focusing on the effort rather than the outcome is key. You can acknowledge them with observations like, "You're working so hard to roll over today," or "You've been trying to get that block tower to balance all morning and it just keeps collapsing. I am noticing how persistent you are." Or even something as simple as, "I see you really trying." Another benefit of this approach is that it keeps our focus on our child's abilities rather than our perception of them. The real goal of praising anyone is to help them feel good about their accomplishment, right? And to strengthen their appetite for challenge. But if we're constantly commenting on their actions with, "Good job, mommy is so proud of you," all of a sudden the attention is on our feelings and how we feel about them. Subconsciously, children begin to associate their performance with our love and approval. Their primary motivation then becomes getting that steady stream of love and approval, and they start to behave from that place rather than from a place of innate wonder, curiosity, or excitement. So when praising young children, we really want to keep our feelings out of the equation as much as possible. And again, turn to what they're doing and how it's benefiting them. "You have been going up and down the stairs every day, and I can tell that you really love it. And it seems to be getting a little bit easier each time. How fun." Now, what about if your child is doing something incorrectly, but they're working really hard at it? Do you stop them and make the correction, or do you let them continue to figure it out on their own? From my perspective, it's all about the goals and about balance. We can't always allow a toddler to make a giant mess when they're learning to sweep, for instance, or when they're helping baking muffins, they can't put them in the oven. So we have to have some guidelines in place. But if nothing or no one is getting hurt, let them persist. Yes, eventually we want the dust to go in the dustpan and legitimately clean up the kitchen floor. But that doesn't have to happen today. If today our child is genuinely excited and interested in learning about how their muscles and movements have to coordinate in order to make the broom move from side to side, interrupting them with our praise or even our corrections will only serve to distract them. So we do not have to say, that's not how you do it. But we also don't have to say, you're doing a great job. Sometimes the best approach is just to say nothing and allow them to be really immersed in that moment. Because after all, they're working really hard at some task and they don't need our additional encouragement. We just have to zip our lips and let that moment unfold. One last note. I really encourage you to work at creating a sense of natural balance around how much and how often you praise your children. Even when we mean well and we have so much love to give our kids, it's possible to overdo it with praise. Start building awareness around how often you're commenting on their work or their play. If you catch yourself in a constant stream of good jobs, just remember that the value of your words is going to be diluted. You want your words to really spark a feeling of joy and competence, so try to reserve your praise for times that really, really matter. And pay attention to when you're delivering your praise. If your child is really focused on a puzzle and they haven't looked up from the pieces in 10 minutes, let that moment persist. Even a small and sweet gesture like going over and complimenting them on their work can break their concentration. So do your best to just hold that thought and wait for them to look up, make eye contact, or even invite you over to see what they've done. And then they're going to be wide open to hearing our words of affirmation. Okay, that's it for this topic. I hope you found this useful. Continue to tune in for more perspectives on raising young children. You can subscribe to my channel, visit my website, or connect with other parents and caregivers in my private Facebook group. All of those links will be in the notes below. Thanks for listening.